You didn't stumble here by accident. Something in you, subtle, electric, ancient, pulled you into this moment. You may call it curiosity, fate, or a whisper you couldn't ignore. But beneath all that language, it's one thing: intuition calling itself back into awareness. For too long, you've been told intuition is mysterious, unmeasurable, a superstition dressed in soft light. Yet what if it's the most precise instrument you own? Not magic, but memory encoded in the body, humming through fascia, blood, and nerve. You've felt it, that flicker in the gut before a choice. That unseen alignment when something just feels right. The quiet resistance when it doesn't. The mind rationalizes, but the body knows first. Always. Imagine this intuition as an electromagnetic conversation between your cells and the unseen field around you. A resonance, not a command. When the signal weakens, it isn't because the wisdom is gone, it's because the world has grown loud. The noise of comparison, logic, productivity, perfection, each demand another layer over the voice that once guided you effortlessly. But here's the truth. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's the return of signal. When you learn to listen beneath the static, you begin to hear what was never lost. Your body doesn't need convincing. It remembers coherence. It knows what peace feels like. It knows alignment by sensation, not by reason. Science may call it bioelectrical feedback. Mystics may call it the whisper of the soul. The name doesn't matter, the experience does. Because intuition isn't somewhere out there, waiting, it's alive in the electromagnetic hum beneath your ribs, in the way your breath syncs with the rhythm of what's true. And right now, that pulse is rising. It's asking you to slow down, to feel, to remember the language your body spoke before words. Every inhale, a signal of reconnection. Every exhale, a soft unbinding from the noise. This is the moment you stop searching for intuition as an idea and start sensing it as your nature. You were never separate. You were always the signal. The hum you just felt in that final breath, keep it. Because what comes next is not about adding new knowledge. It's about remembering a language you've spoken your entire life but forgot how to translate. Your body has been speaking in microtones, in the flicker of muscle fibers, the heat behind your eyes, the shift in your heartbeat when someone enters the room. Yet somewhere along the way, the modern world convinced you to silence it. You were trained to trust metrics over feelings, data over instinct, and in doing so, the most ancient dialogue you possess, the one between body and awareness, went underground. From that stillness, you can start to sense how noise took over. Screens buzzing, deadlines pulsing, decisions stacked on decisions until the nervous system began mistaking stimulation for safety. You might have thought, I'm just tired. But exhaustion is often the body's protest against a life out of rhythm. Consider this: every sensation is a form of intelligence. The quickening of breath isn't simply anxiety, it's communication. The tension in your shoulders isn't random, it's your fascia storing unfinished sentences, emotional paragraphs never spoken aloud. When you override these cues in the name of reason, you cut yourself off from the original operating system. The deeper truth is that intuition doesn't arrive as words, it arrives as shifts, as contraction or expansion, heat or coolness, density or openness. This is your inner Morse code, tapping out messages faster than your thinking mind can interpret. The mind writes stories, the body sends signals. Both are needed, but only one knows the truth first. And yet something else is unfolding when you begin to listen again. The entire organism reorganizes around the act of awareness. Your pulse steadies. The micro muscles in your face relax. The breath deepens on its own. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. The body rewards attention with coherence. What happens when you breathe into it? The static softens. You start noticing how emotions have geography, fear tightening low in the belly, joy lifting through the chest, grief resting behind the sternum like a small sun waiting to burn clean. Each sensation carries instruction: move here, pause there, speak now. You see, intuition doesn't demand belief, it requests relationship. The more you engage with these sensations, the clearer the translation becomes. At first, it might feel vague, a whisper, a tug, a sense of rightness you can't prove, but consistency turns ambiguity into fluency. Feel often enough, and you begin to understand what your own signals mean. The field listens to coherence, not confusion. When your internal systems align breath with heartbeat, thought with emotion, signal clarity increases. That's why intuition doesn't shout, it resonates. A clear channel doesn't need volume. Beneath that layer lies a hard truth. Numbness has become a cultural virtue. We call it professionalism, productivity, strength. But numbness isn't neutrality, it's disconnection. It costs sensitivity. And sensitivity is the antenna through which intuition speaks. To reclaim it is to risk feeling again fully, messily, honestly. And yet this is the price of truth, to re-enter the body after years of exile, to stop asking for signs from the sky and start hearing them in your pulse. The signs were never missing. They were misfiled under ignore this. It's inconvenient. Imagine treating your body not as machinery to be optimized, but as a companion fluent in frequencies. Every ache becomes a syllable, every shiver a sentence. Over time, you realize it was never about learning intuition, it was about unmuting it. From here, you begin to notice subtle things: how your feet ground when something aligns, how your chest collapses when a path veers off course. You start predicting outcomes without needing reasons, because your body has already run the equation. This is where awareness turns physical, where thought descends into tissue and knowing becomes sensation. You are not thinking your way toward intuition, you are returning to your own circuitry. And as the static clears, one truth stands radiant. Intuition is not a gift you earn. It is the native language of your being, waiting patiently beneath the noise for you to remember how to listen. The moment you start listening to the body's signals, breath becomes the translator. The pulse you felt in your chest in the last section, the rise. The fall, that's the rhythm of reconnection. And if intuition is the language of sensation, then breath is its grammar. You may notice this already when fear takes hold. The breath shortens when truth lands. It expands. Every inhale and exhale is data, an electromagnetic message between body and field. The breath, in its quiet precision, tells the nervous system whether the world is safe or hostile, whether to open or contract. Modern science calls it the autonomic dialogue, the exchange between the parasympathetic and sympathetic systems. But ancient traditions knew this long before names existed. They saw breath as the bridge between worlds, the conscious and the unconscious, the physical and the unseen. Each breath, a gate you walk through thousands of times a day without noticing that you are crossing dimensions. The deeper truth is this: breath is mechanical alchemy. When you slow it intentionally, you hack the chemistry of fear. When you deepen it, you rewire survival into serenity. The vagus nerve, the quiet conductor behind your heartbeat, your digestion, your mood responds directly to that signal. Every long exhale tells it, we're safe now. And when the body feels safe, intuition rises like clear water. From that stillness, a new clarity emerges. You start realizing that intuition doesn't thrive in chaos. It thrives in coherence when the rhythms of the heart, breath, and brain synchronize into a single pulse. This state has been mapped by scientists, yet experienced by monks long before machines confirmed it. They called it harmony. The lab calls it heart-brain coherence. The name doesn't matter, the feeling does. Beneath that layer lies a revelation. Safety is not the absence of danger. It's the restoration of trust. When you breathe consciously, you're not escaping fear, you're teaching the body how to remain open in its presence. And openness is the antenna of intuition. Imagine the breath as a tuning fork. Each inhalation vibrates through your fascia, clearing static. Each exhale releases old noise stored in the spine, the gut, the solar plexus. Over time, your whole system starts humming in a clearer tone, a coherence the field can recognize. The universe doesn't speak English, it speaks resonance. What happens when you breathe like you mean it? Space appears where tension once ruled. Thoughts scatter like birds startled into sky. The field leans closer, listening. You realize the most mystical doorway was never hidden. It was right here, behind your ribs, moving in rhythm with your life. Consider this next current breath is not just air, it's information. With each inhale, you pull in the collective intelligence of your environment, ions, particles, memories. With each exhale, you send out your state: calm, chaos, longing, love. It's a two-way exchange, a real-time conversation between you and the field. And yet, most people breathe as if they're apologizing for taking up space. Shallow, rushed, contained. But you were built for full-spectrum breathing, for the kind that expands the chest, widens the ribs, reclaims territory once occupied by fear. Try this. Right now, inhale slowly through your nose for 5 counts. Pause, then exhale through your mouth for 6. Do it again. Feel how the breath doesn't just oxygenate blood, it organizes energy. Feel how your thoughts rearrange themselves around the rhythm. Feel how silence grows audible. This is not relaxation, it's recalibration. Breath isn't an escape from life, it's a way back into it. When you breathe consciously, the inner world and the outer world begin to mirror each other. You move from control to communion, and the deeper you go, the more you realize intuition was never missing. It was just waiting for you to exhale long enough to hear its reply. That exhale you just released, it changed more than your mood. It altered chemistry. Beneath the rhythm of breath, your cells are rearranging, responding to a signal older than thought itself. This is where intuition descends from the subtle to the molecular, where knowing becomes chemistry in motion. You may have heard of serotonin, the so-called feel-good molecule. But serotonin isn't only about happiness, it's about perception. Nearly all of it, more than 90%, lives not in the brain, but in the gut. There, in the winding corridors of tissue and nerve, it listens, it measures, it translates the outside world into internal sensation. From that stillness, you can feel the truth of it. When serotonin flows freely, the body softens, tissues relax, awareness widens. The field feels near. When chemistry constricts through stress, exhaustion, fear, the intuitive channel narrows. You begin mistaking noise for truth. That's not spiritual failure, it's physiology in distress. And yet, something else is unfolding here. Your body isn't just reacting, it's remembering. Every molecule of serotonin carries instructions from evolution: when to rest, when to act, when to trust the invisible pull toward safety or inspiration. Intuition, at its essence, is the body remembering the future through its chemistry. Imagine serotonin as a river. When it's flowing, the banks of your awareness widen. You see patterns where there were only fragments. You sense alignment in a conversation before words confirm it. But when that river stagnates, when sleep shortens, diet dulls, or the mind loops in worry the water clouds, the current of knowing slows to a trickle. This is not punishment, it's feedback. Your biology isn't blocking intuition, it's signaling imbalance. The body is the barometer of coherence. The gut, heart, and fascia form a triad of knowing, a biochemical symphony constantly tuning itself to the frequencies of your choices. Consider this next current: serotonin doesn't work alone. Every emotion carries chemistry: dopamine for desire, oxytocin for connection, cortisol for defense. Intuition isn't above them, it rides their waves. Each molecule a messenger in the dialogue between your physical form and the field that surrounds it. The deeper truth is that you can't think your way into intuition, because thought arrives after chemistry. Feeling comes first. The body senses long before the mind interprets. That tightness in the chest, when someone's smile feels off, that's serotonin shifting. That lightness when a decision clicks. Same system, different frequency. So what happens when you start caring for your chemistry as sacred? When nourishment becomes ritual, movement becomes prayer, and breath becomes code, the nervous system steadies. The serotonin river clears. Intuition no longer whispers through static, it sings through your veins. Beneath that layer lies the fascia, the connective web that holds your organs in place and your memories in form. Science calls it tissue. Mystics call it light. It's both. Fascia conducts electricity faster than nerves, translating movement and emotion into frequency. Every stretch, every sigh, every tear reorganizes this luminous network, tuning it like an instrument. When you move with awareness, walk, dance, breathe, you're not merely exercising, you're adjusting signal strength. You're opening the body's internal antenna, allowing serotonin and sensation to communicate without interference. And when that conversation flows, intuition no longer feels mystical. It feels inevitable: safety, chemistry, and knowing they are one continuum. When you soothe the chemistry of fear, intuition awakens. When you honor the biochemistry of peace, guidance becomes clear. You don't need to force insight. You need to cultivate the conditions where it can surface. Because intuition is not found in the sky, it's brewed in the bloodstream, distilled through breath, and delivered as a feeling of absolute quiet certainty. And as that realization settles, notice how your own body responds. A soft expansion, a gentle yes. The chemistry of knowing, alive within you, waiting to be trusted again. The chemistry you just felt flowing, it doesn't vanish when the mind awakens. It rises upward, meeting the neural gatekeeper that decides what you actually perceive. That gatekeeper is called the reticular activating system, or RAS, a small cluster of neurons. Yet it governs everything your awareness lets through. Think of the RAS as the border between the seen and the unseen. Every second, millions of signals flood your senses: light, sound, movement, micro changes in temperature, shifts in tone, the subtlest contraction in another's face. You cannot process it all. So this network decides what matters, what gets through, what stays invisible. And here lies the secret: your RAS is trained by focus. Whatever you repeatedly attend to, it amplifies. Whatever you dismiss, it silences. When you dwell on fear, you start finding evidence of danger everywhere. When you lean into coherence, you begin noticing alignment in the smallest things, the way a song lyric answers a question, the way the timing of events feels precise beyond logic. From that stillness, you begin to realize that intuition is not random magic. It is perception curated by resonance. The RAS tunes itself to the emotional frequency you inhabit most often. That's why gratitude sharpens intuition, because it signals to the brain, this state is safe. Expand awareness here. And yet something else is unfolding beneath the surface. The RAS doesn't only process sensory input, it listens to internal cues. Your heartbeat, breath rhythm, and gut tension all send constant data. The more coherent your biology, the more precise your filter becomes. Chaos inside creates distortion outside. Consider this next current when you meditate, breathe, or even pause long enough to feel your pulse. You're literally adjusting the algorithm of awareness. You're telling your neural gatekeeper, show me what's aligned with this state of calm, not my old survival loops. Over time, perception rewrites itself. Coincidences multiply. Synchronicity becomes pattern, not anomaly. The deeper truth is that intuition has always been there. You simply weren't letting it in. The RAS, conditioned by years of distraction, kept filtering out the subtle in favor of the urgent. The notification replaced the nudge. The noise became the default signal. But now, as you learn to center the nervous system, the filter clears. What happens when you breathe into your focus rather than forcing it? The mind relaxes its grip, and awareness expands horizontally rather than vertically. You stop tunnel visioning for outcomes and start perceiving fields possibilities that shimmer at the edge of logic. This isn't imagination. It's the nervous system remembering how to listen in multiple directions at once. Beneath that layer lies humility. You can't control what the RAS allows through, but you can influence it through emotion. Joy widens the aperture. Curiosity illuminates hidden pathways. Fear constricts them all, so each time you choose presence over panic, you're not just calming yourself, you're recalibrating your perceptual architecture. And yet, this is not about permanent serenity. It's about dynamic flexibility. Your awareness should contract when true danger arises and expand when truth calls. Mastery isn't constant openness. It's intelligent rhythm, the ability to adjust your focus without losing coherence. You might remember moments when intuition felt instantaneous in insight, a warning, a flash of certainty that arrived uninvited. Those weren't accidents. They were instances when your RAS opened for a second, letting the field stream through unfiltered. The goal is to live from that openness, not in bursts, but as baseline. To do that, you train perception like breath, gently, daily, with reverence. Every time you slow down to truly notice the taste of water, the sound of footsteps, the weight of silence, you expand the gateway of awareness. The mind may call it focus. The mystic calls it surrender. Both are correct, because when focus aligns with presence, intuition doesn't whisper, it reveals. And so, as your attention sharpens, reality begins to reorganize around it, matching the clarity you embody. The gatekeeper is no longer a barrier. It becomes a bridge. The bridge you just crossed through awareness, it leads deeper into the territory where story dissolves and sensation takes command. Because once your perception begins to open, the next challenge is learning to trust what you feel before the mind explains it away. You see, the body speaks first. The mind writes captions later. That flutter in your gut, the warmth that rushes to your chest when you meet someone aligned, that's intuition at work. But modern conditioning reversed the hierarchy. We were taught to interpret before we sense, to analyze before we listen. The result? A world fluent in logic but tone-deaf to truth. From that stillness, you begin to perceive how often your thoughts talk over your sensations. The moment a feeling arises, the mind races to categorize it. I'm anxious, I'm confused, I'm overreacting. Yet beneath those labels lies pure signal. Sensation is raw data from the field. Story is the commentary. The deeper truth is that intuition doesn't dwell in interpretation. It lives in immediacy. Before emotion, before narrative, it's the tightening before the no, the softening before the yes. When you learn to pause at that first flicker, you meet intuition in its native form, simple, direct, unpolluted by meaning. And yet, something else is unfolding here. Many people fear embodiment because feeling deeply can resurrect old pain. The body remembers everything: the arguments you swallowed, the disappointments you buried, the dreams you delayed. Re-entering sensation can feel like walking back into a storm, but storms cleanse. The only way out of numbness is through sensation. Consider this next current when you allow yourself to feel without assigning a label. You begin to dissolve the boundary between physical and energetic intelligence. That ache in the throat may not be sadness. It might be the body rehearsing the courage to speak. That tension in the jaw may not be anger, it might be unexpressed truth pressing for release. Beneath that layer lies a simple practice when sensation arises. Breathe into it, not away from it. Let the breath wrap around the discomfort, like light around a seed. Don't demand explanation, offer attention. The moment you stop resisting sensation, it transforms. Tightness turns to current. Heat turns to guidance. This is how intuition refines itself through somatic honesty. Every time you honor what your body feels without censoring it, you align the nervous system with the quantum field. You stop sending mixed signals. You become congruent inside and out. What happens then? Life starts responding faster. Decisions clarify. Relationships self-select. You notice that the universe doesn't need to shout when you're listening accurately. The whispers become enough. And yet, the mind will still try to reclaim the throne. It will say, "Prove it." But embodiment isn't provable in the ways logic demands. It's experiential, a language of pressure, pulse, rhythm, warmth. To doubt it is to disconnect from the instrument built for truth. Think of your body as both receiver and transmitter. When it's tense, the message distorts. When it's relaxed, signal fidelity returns. Every time you stretch, breathe, or ground your feet into the floor, you're tuning your instrument. You're telling the universe, "I'm ready to feel the full frequency of now." And this is the paradox. You can't think your way into intuition, but you can feel your way there. Sensation is the shortcut. Story is the delay. So when the next wave rises, a contraction in your chest, a swell in your belly, pause. Ask not what does this mean, but what does this move? Then follow the movement, because the body never lies. It only translates faster than the mind can keep up. And once you learn that rhythm, life itself becomes a feedback loop of sensation, a dialogue so fluent. Words feel unnecessary. The sensations that ripple beneath your skin, they're not random. They're rhythm looking for expression. When awareness deepens beyond story, movement becomes the next vocabulary. Because intuition, at its purest, doesn't always speak in stillness. Sometimes it dances. Think of creativity not as art, but as translation, the body converting vibration into visible form. Every brushstroke, note, or gesture is intuition giving itself shape. You've felt this before, the sudden urge to move, to hum, to write something without knowing why. That's not distraction, that's decoding. From that stillness, a revelation emerges. Creativity and intuition share the same channel. Both require surrender. Both dissolve the boundary between me and it. When you create without performance, you enter the same state of flow where intuitive knowing thrives, where the frontal mind quiets and the limbic system takes the lead. Modern neuroscience has traced this shift. During spontaneous expression, the brain's default mode network, the part obsessed with identity and control, goes silent. In its place, the sensory and emotional circuits light up. You feel alive, unfiltered, unseparated from the moment. The mystic might call it union. The scientist calls it flow. Both are describing coherence in motion. And yet, something else is unfolding beneath this. Creativity isn't a luxury, it's maintenance for the soul. When energy stagnates, emotion accumulates, movement clears it, paint releases it, song transforms it. The process is alchemy disguised as play. Every act of creation is a recalibration of the nervous system. Consider this next current when you pick up a pen, drum, brush, or camera. You're not producing, you're remembering. You're giving the body permission to speak in its native dialect again. Each gesture says, "I'm listening." The field responds to that sincerity faster than to any mantra or affirmation, because art carries the frequency of presence. The deeper truth is that intuition doesn't bloom in perfection, it blossoms in mess. The unfinished sketch, the off-key hum, the scribbled page, these are sacred precisely because they bypass the ego's filter. You can't overthink a dance mid-step. You can only surrender to timing. That surrender is the intuitive act itself. Beneath that layer lies something luminous. When you create, you stop seeking signs and start generating them. The colors you choose, the movements you make, they mirror your current state of alignment. A dull tone might reveal fatigue. A bold streak might expose readiness. The artwork becomes oracle. What happens when you let yourself play without outcome? The body unlocks. The fascia softens, chemistry shifts, serotonin rises, dopamine stabilizes, and intuition floods the system like a returning tide. You rediscover what monks and children have always known: creation is meditation with motion. And yet, the world often teaches you the opposite, that art is indulgent, that expression requires permission, that play is for those who have time. But intuition does not wait for convenience. It thrives on participation. When you move with music, when you write without editing, when you sing until your throat trembles, you become the living instrument of your own awakening. So if you've been seeking clarity, try painting your confusion. If you've been waiting for direction, dance your uncertainty. Motion invites message. The field speaks through movement because motion is trust made visible. Every gesture, a declaration, "I'm willing to feel again." And the more you do, the more obvious it becomes. Intuition was never hiding behind the veil of mystery. It was waiting in the rhythm, in the melody, in the line your hand was afraid to draw. The body always knew. Creativity simply gave it a voice. The rhythm that moved through your body in creation doesn't stop when the music ends. It extends outward into sight itself. Because when intuition fully awakens, beauty becomes its mirror. Every color, sound, and pattern a form of frequency feedback. Have you ever noticed how awe resets you? How a sunrise stills the mind faster than meditation? That's not sentimentality, that's physics. Beauty is resonance perceived through the senses. It's coherence made visible. When you pause before something beautiful, your nervous system syncs to that harmony. Your heart rate evens, breath deepens, thought falls into alignment. From that stillness, the world begins to look different. What once felt ordinary reveals coded design, the spiral of a shell matching galaxies. The way light fractures on water, mimicking neuron pathways. The symmetry of leaves echoing Fibonacci sequences. You realize beauty isn't decoration, it's the pattern of intelligence itself. And yet, something else unfolds beneath this recognition. The reason beauty heals isn't just emotional, it's electromagnetic. The HeartMath Institute observed that appreciation alters heart rhythm, inducing measurable coherence between the brain and the heart. But long before science mapped this, mystics spoke of beauty as divine order, two languages describing one phenomenon: resonance. Consider this next current. When you notice beauty intentionally, you're not escaping reality, you're recalibrating it. Each moment of awe sends a message through your nervous system. This frequency feels like home. The body listens, chemistry shifts, awareness expands. The deeper truth is that beauty trains perception the same way meditation trains attention. The more you notice it, the more it multiplies. Because your reticular activating system, the same neural gatekeeper we explored earlier, amplifies what you emotionally value. So every time you pause to marvel, your biology learns to seek coherence instead of conflict. Beneath that layer lies the paradox. Beauty is both external and internal. You don't just see it, you become it. When your system reaches resonance, the same harmony that shaped the flower, the song, the starlight, begins to pulse within you. This is why people glow when they're aligned. The body reflects the symmetry of the field. What happens when you live this way, treating beauty not as luxury but as feedback? You begin navigating by radiance. The choices that drain you appear dim. The paths that align shimmer subtly. Intuition refines itself into aesthetic perception. You stop asking, "Is this right?" and start feeling, "Does this feel beautiful?" And yet, the modern world often numbs this sensitivity. Constant motion dulls perception. Overexposure flattens awe. You scroll through wonder until even miracles blur. But beauty doesn't need grandeur, it only needs presence. The shadow on your wall, the sound of rain against metal, the way breath fogs glass, all are invitations back into coherence. So pause more often, look longer, let beauty recalibrate you. Because every time you feel awe, your heart and brain synchronize, forming a bridge across dimensions of awareness. The field listens through wonder. In this way, beauty becomes both compass and confirmation. It says, "Yes, keep going." It whispers, "You're aligned." And when you let it guide you, intuition stops being something you reach for. It becomes the light you walk in. The artist and the mystic share the same secret. They don't create beauty, they recognize it. And recognition is the highest form of resonance. So let the world mirror your coherence. Let beauty be the proof that your inner signal is clear. Because when you begin to see the world as pattern, as pulse, as living design, you're not escaping reality. You're finally perceiving it as it truly is: radiant, intelligent, alive. The radiance you just felt, the shimmer of beauty echoing through your awareness, doesn't stop at perception. It moves outward, into reality itself. Because once coherence stabilizes, the field begins to respond. Intuition stops being internal guidance and becomes environmental orchestration. You've experienced this before: the right call at the right time. The stranger whose words answer your unspoken question. The sudden alignment of events that feels too intricate to be coincidence. The rational mind calls it chance, but the coherent system recognizes it as resonance, the universe mirroring your frequency back to you. From that stillness, the realization unfolds: you are not separate from the field you navigate. Every emotion, every thought, every micro shift in chemistry sends a signal into the web of reality. The field, in turn, organizes itself around your dominant vibration. It's not reward or punishment, it's reflection. The deeper truth is that coherence attracts coherence. When your inner rhythms stabilize heart with breath, mind with body, the field identifies that pattern as harmony and synchronizes with it. The more aligned your internal orchestra, the more the outer world plays in tune. Consider this next current when people speak of manifestation. They often imagine mental control, willing reality into compliance. But true resonance doesn't manipulate, it magnetizes. The field doesn't obey demands, it echoes coherence. When you're aligned, you don't chase, you broadcast. And yet, something subtler unfolds beneath this. The field isn't only responding to what you want, it mirrors what you actually embody. You can say, "I'm peaceful," but if the body still hums in defense, the signal is mixed. The field reads vibration, not vocabulary. What happens when you align feeling with thought, breath with intention? Synchronicity becomes ordinary. The invisible network of reality starts revealing itself through rhythm patterns of timing, mirrors in conversation, signs that feel personal because they are. You've tuned to the frequency where intuition and environment merge. Beneath that layer lies humility. This isn't about control, it's about participation. The field is vast, intelligent, ever responsive. You're not commanding it, you're collaborating. The ancient mystics called this co-creation. Modern physics calls it entanglement. Two languages describing one truth connection beyond distance. And yet, coherence isn't static. It requires maintenance. Doubt, fear, resentment all create small dissonances that scatter signal. The work is not to eliminate them, but to notice and recalibrate. Each breath, each conscious exhale, retunes the instrument. You may notice as you practice this that life begins to feel conversational. You think of someone and they reach out. You feel the urge to walk a different route, and there waits an unexpected opportunity. None of this breaks the laws of physics. It simply reveals the subtler law that energy organizes according to attention. The mind might whisper, "This is too much to believe," but belief isn't required. Observation is the more you notice alignment, the more alignment multiplies. This is feedback in action, the universe learning you as you learn it. From that recognition, gratitude arises naturally, not as polite positivity, but as biological resonance. Gratitude is the emotional signature of coherence. It tells the field, this state is sustainable, and the field responds with more of it. You see, reality is less like a movie you watch, and more like a symphony you're performing. Each choice, each thought, each breath adds a note. The field listens, harmonizes, and sends the echo back as circumstance. And as you start playing consciously, something profound occurs. Life stops feeling random. It becomes orchestral. Everything, even the dissonance, belongs to the unfolding composition. That's when intuition graduates from personal compass to universal conductor. You're no longer navigating the world, you're composing it. The orchestra you've been conducting, the resonance that moves through your life, listen closely. Beneath the melody of synchronicity lies a deeper silence, the sound of trust. Because once the field begins to mirror your coherence, the final step isn't control, it's surrender. At first, surrender sounds like loss. The ego hears let go and panics. But intuition isn't asking you to abandon direction. It's inviting you to release tension, to stop gripping the steering wheel so tightly that you forget the vehicle knows the way. From that stillness, a revelation rises. Trust is the frequency that turns intuition into embodiment. Without trust, you hover between signals aware of guidance, but afraid to follow. When you trust, coherence stabilizes, the nervous system relaxes into alignment, chemistry harmonizes, the field settles around you like a mirror finally free of distortion, and yet something even quieter begins to unfold. You realize that the voice you called intuition was never separate from you. It is you, the deeper intelligence pulsing beneath identity, waiting patiently for your attention. The oracle you've been consulting lives behind your ribs. Consider this next current surrender isn't the act of giving up, it's the art of tuning in. When you release the need to predict, you make space for precision. The future stops being a mystery to be solved and becomes a rhythm to be sensed. You no longer ask, "What will happen?" You ask, "What is resonating right now?" Beneath that layer lies an ancient remembering. You've done this before. Every child trusts their inner signal until conditioning convinces them otherwise. They move toward warmth, light, laughter, all intuitive coordinates. They only forget when the world rewards reason over resonance. But the forgetting was temporary. The body remembers the map. And when you breathe, when you create, when you listen, that map unfolds again, veins as rivers, heartbeat as drum, breath as compass. You are the oracle returning to its own temple. The deeper truth is that trust doesn't eliminate uncertainty, it transforms it. uncertainty becomes spacious, a field of possibility rather than threat. Surrender doesn't make you passive, it makes you permeable to guidance that logic can't predict. What happens when you live this way? Choices simplify. Noise fades. You stop chasing proof and start following peace. You begin to sense life moving through you, arranging encounters, timing, and outcomes with elegant precision. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. And yet, even in surrender, discipline remains. This path asks for daily dialogue with your own awareness, breath by breath, moment by moment, remembering to feel before you act, to listen before you speak. This is not a one-time awakening. It's a practice of remembering that never ends. As you continue, you might notice small miracles disguised as ordinariness, the sudden ease in a conversation that once carried tension, the way a long-standing problem dissolves after a single, honest breath. These are confirmations, the field responding to your coherence in real time. Trust doesn't mean you'll never fear again. It means you'll breathe through fear without abandoning your signal. It means you'll keep moving even when logic hesitates, because something older and wiser within you has already said yes. And in that moment, the circuit completes. Intuition is no longer guidance arriving from beyond. It's the pulse of your own becoming. You have not learned intuition. You have remembered it. You have not found the oracle. You have returned home to it. The orchestra fades, yet its resonance remains soft, steady, like the afterglow of a star. This is where all the layers you've traveled, breath, chemistry, focus, sensation, creation, beauty, trust, converge into one silent pulse, the hum beneath every thought, the signal that was always yours. If you listen closely, you may feel it now. A subtle vibration moving through your ribs, echoing in rhythm with the world around you. That's not imagination, it's coherence. The universe responding to a body that finally remembers how to listen. From this stillness, everything begins again. Intuition doesn't end with revelation, it deepens with repetition. Every conscious breath refines it. Every moment of awe nourishes it. Every act of trust strengthens its current until it becomes indistinguishable from the way you live. And yet, something gentler unfolds here, awareness without effort. You no longer have to seek signs, they arrive naturally. You no longer question alignment, you feel it. Intuition ceases to be a mystery and becomes muscle memory, a native intelligence reawakened. Consider this truth: you were never disconnected. The field never stopped speaking. The silence you once feared was simply the bandwidth waiting for your return. So breathe once more, slow, deliberate. Let the exhale carry everything unnecessary. Let the inhale fill the spaces you once doubted. Feel the coherence settle in your chest like light in water. Tonight, when the world grows quiet, listen, not for words, but for resonance. For that pulse beneath the noise reminding you that you are both transmitter and receiver, question and answer, signal and song. The oracle within you is awake now. It doesn't demand, it simply invites. And when you follow its rhythm step by step, breath by breath, you don't just hear intuition, you become it. Listen tonight, the field is already responding.